Hi, how are you, Chris?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. The
Thanks.
hair is much cooler than I was expecting.
Thanks for willing to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm guessing we're just recording this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Um, so I can just jump around in terms of certain things in your career that I kind
Yeah,
of I hadn't seen you be asked about as much in other interviews. That's kind of like what
sure.
I like to focus on. Um, but first, I do want to say I love the Mad About You video.
Oh, thank you for watching. It was just so so freaking fun to do. So, yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, I was wondering. You've probably been asked this before, but what exactly is it about Slaughter specifically that made you focus on
Oh
that?
man, that's a great question. And I've had a few people ask me that. And so what happened was you know, I I kind of always loved hairband music when I was younger, but it was sort of like the bad kid music,
Yeah.
and I was a little young for it. So, my parents didn't let me watch MTV and stuff like that. So it was always kind of this forbidden music. And then later, when I got older, um, I just, started listening to it more and just really enjoyed it and stuff like that. But I'd still never been to a concert. And back in about 2016, I had a couple friends of mine, like I was having lunch with this friend, and it came out that I love hair bands. And she said, "Oh my gosh, we're going to go to this festival where there are like 20 bands, and you should come with us." So I went to that show, and Slaughter was one of the bands. And for some reason, they just kind of captured my imagination.
Hmm.
And so I started listening to Slaughter music like in my car and everything. Um and I just started getting these ideas for, you know, different versions of Slaughter songs. And I don't know why. Like it just continued to be Slaughter. And so then we started doing, like, I created the live show in LA. So we were doing Slaughter um as a live show. And then after the shutdown happened, like I had started recording a couple of the songs before that. And then, since I was already in shutdown anyway, I was like, I'm just gonna kind of keep recording some of these songs. And um it turned into an album. So yeah, now the whole album is gonna be coming out like in a month.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to ever meet Mark? Like, does he know about what you guys are doing?
He does. The funny thing is that after so at our first live show,
Hmm.
somebody tipped him off that this was happening in Los Angeles. And so he and the guys in Slaughter sent their business manager guy uh, to check it out and see, like, is this a real thing? Like, what's happening with this? And he ended up staying for the whole show and filming parts of it and sent it to them.
Oh, yeah.
So they loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so a few months later, I went to a concert, another Slaughter concert, and I got myself a pretty good seat and everything. And he saw me, Mark Slaughter saw me in the crowd and had one of the crew guys get me backstage so I could watch the rest of the concert backstage and meet them and talk with them. So it was pretty great. It was
Yeah.
just a pretty amazing experience.
Right. So moving on to your career, I do just the first thing I can ask is what was the first job that got you into SAG?
Oh, that got me into SAG. Well, actually, what got me into SAG was I was an extra because I was, coming out when I came out to LA, I wanted to do on camera and voiceover work.
Yeah.
And so I got a job as an extra on Austin Powers' Gold Member
Oh,
movie. So if you actually look in the background of one of the big party scenes where he's singing at the beginning, I'm in the crowd, and that's actually how I got my SAG card.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. As far as like voiceover, I did some radio commercials in Kansas City before I moved out to LA, and then the first big quote unquote cartoon job although I didn't realize at the time it was called anime. The first job I booked out in LA was FLCL,
Right.
which was Haruko, and that from there it just kind of kept going.
Hmm. And wasn't your first video game credit for the Buffy series?
It was. Oh my gosh, you've done your homework. Yeah, the very first video game that I did was Buffy the Vampire Slayer Chaos Bleeds, and I played Willow. Allison Hannigan wasn't available, so they needed somebody that could kind of do a voice match for her. So I played Willow in the game.
Was that considering what it was and everything, was that daunting at all to you?
I mean, it was because I loved that show, and it's you want to do a good job, and especially when it's something that you really like.
Hmm.
Um, so it turned out all right. It turned out okay, and then started booking other things.
And prior to voiceover stuff, when you were trying to pursue on camera more so, like were you having the opportunity to audition for like major shows and film really or no?
Yeah, somewhat. It's tricky because sometimes if you don't have a lot of connections in LA, the quality of auditions that you get are not always great right off the bat.
Right.
But I got to audition for Power Rangers and
Oh yeah.
some other things like that. Uh and the funny thing was is that like before I moved to LA, I was doing commercials and voiceover and professional theater in Kansas City and had a really nice career going on there. So it was a big adjustment when I moved out to LA to just kind of hit this little bit of a standstill. I'm like, oh gosh, now I'm not really booking much of anything, and the on-camera stuff is super slow for me, and I got kind of frustrated with the on-camera side of things, and so that's when I just thought I'm going to focus all my attention on voiceover. And once I started doing that, the voiceover side of things started going really well. And then years later, when voiceover is just, going great, that's when I started booking more on-camera jobs. Like
Yep.
it was years later that then I started booking, like the Swiffer commercial and Wizards of Waverly Place and Criminal Minds. And I actually ended up doing more on-camera work later.
And this is kind of moving ahead a little bit, but I was wondering what the story was about. Since you did all the scratch stuff for Tangled, I was wondering how the story of that about that was.
Man, that was such a great experience. Just because with those big animated films, they can be it can take years for them to get put together.
Yep.
So they hadn't even cast Rapunzel yet, but they were full on storyboarding, making the movie, writing it, starting to, it's a beautiful 3D animation. So they were starting to do all of that. So I worked on that movie for quite a long time. And then they ended up casting Mandy Moore. And, and then, so, there were certain things like I think a number of my screams and stuff ended up in the movie. So I don't know if she wasn't really available to do those or something. Um, and it was really cool. There was one time where they had to record the orchestra and the whole chorus for the big bar tavern
Mhm.
musical number. So I got to sing and do her scratch singing for that song with all
Oh.
of the orchestra and all of these amazing Broadway singers and singers from Chicago and stuff like that. So that was a really amazing experience to just get to be part of that, even though eventually you get replaced by Mandy Moore,
Mhm.
who did a
And
lovely job.
yeah, well, and in the second Tangle, did you even have to audition, or did they just like bring you back?
Mm-mm. Yeah, I don't think I auditioned for the second one where I just had like the little tiny part as her mom, the queen. Um, and then I did like a couple of tiny voices in the series, but
Yeah.
it's very rare. But they actually got Mandy Moore to come back and do it in the TV series as well. So yeah, so I've just played other little parts in the series.
And also related to that, kind of related to that, but what was the story of how you got the role in Bolt?
Oh, well, that was another situation where I got hired to come in and do the scratch.
Okay.
So I was doing the scratch for Mittens, the main
Yep.
cat character. And then when it came time for Mindy from the network and a couple of other side characters, they had me do the scratch for that too. And there was a specific celebrity that they were looking at to do Mindy from the network. And apparently, they heard my performance on it and they're like, "Nah, she's pretty good. Let's just keep her in that part." So it was really lovely. Like it was one of those little validating things of, "Oh my gosh, I, you know, did the best I could," and they actually ended up keeping that one and not recasting.
Mhm. And are those specific cases with really major animated films, or those audition processes like way more involved than
You know,
normal?
I don't know if the audition processes are more involved. It's true. In my opinion, or in my experience, it's just that, a lot of times you may not get hired for the role right out. You
Mhm.
may get hired to scratch the role. And then if they like you enough after you've been working on the project for quite some time, then you may end up with the role, and I've had that happen with friends, or you may end up that they're like, "Well, we're definitely casting a celebrity for this one, but we really like you and we're going to cast you as something else." So, in that way, I guess it's an ongoing process of showing them what you can do.
Mhm. And I know that you said too that kind of early on that you had to turn down a lot more anime roles.
Yeah, well, when I first started, after FLCL, I was lucky enough to start getting a lot of anime jobs, and and it got to the point where I was very fortunate that I was doing all of this anime work, but I wasn't having the time to actually get in my auditions for like original animation and stuff
Right.
like that. And so I had an agent at the time that said, listen, just we really believe in you. So, you know, if you could just devote a little bit more time towards just auditions and stuff like this, we really think that you could do a lot of Disney and Nickelodeon and stuff like that. So then I had to start turning down some anime work, which was really hard at the time. And and at first it just felt like, oh, this is just a terrible decision because now, you know, I'm not working as much. I'm just auditioning and stuff like that. But then I started booking more and more roles, um, in US animation um, and then, eventually, but I always kind of like to keep one foot in anime just because
Right.
that fan base has been so good to me over the years and have really supported me and everything. So I like to try to always keep doing at least one anime show if I can. So hopefully it works out.
I think that is especially interesting because usually you don't really see that with usually there's like anime dub people and then it's original animation.
Yeah, it's changing now. I think there's a lot more crossover now, but when I was I mean, I've been in LA now 20 years, so when I was starting out and going through my journey with it, it was just very, very separate. Like you
Right.
either did anime or you did original animation. So,
And I'm not sure if anyone's ever brought this up or if you can remember much, but do you remember being in Shadow Hearts video game?
oh yes, yes, I do. The thing I most remember about that game is that the writing, the translation was really wonky. Like,
Oh, okay.
so the picture that we had, like nothing would match the mouth flaps at all. So we were constantly rewriting lines to either make them longer or shorter. And yeah, so that it was a really difficult process, but it ended up turning out okay. But it was hard.
Or with Fatal Frame.
Oh, Fatal Frame. That one, that's the most freaked out. One of the times I've been most freaked out in a recording session because you record things and you're in this dark room by yourself with
Yep.
just this screen. And so yeah, Crimson, we did Crimson Butterfly,
Yep.
Fatal Frame 2, and the imagery is just so disturbing in it that I would just be in this dark room trying to sync up and record my stuff and just thinking this is really freaking me out.
Yep.
So,
And some other early anime roles and stuff that I like is I know you were Kyoko and Heat Guy J.
oh yeah, which is one I don't get asked about a lot. I loved that one. Very film noir, very it's not one that it's a little bit more under the radar, but I really
Mhm.
highly recommend it to people because it's just like quirky film noir anime. And she was, sweet little secretary character, spunky. She was very fun.
Yeah. And also in I think the character's name was Miyu in Gatekeepers 21.
Oh gosh. You might actually be one of the very first people ever to ask about that character.
Oh
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Do you really remember your approach to her or no?
Man, my approach, not so much. I mean, I definitely remember working on it, but I can't remember, any specific stories of this is how I got into this character. It's just like, oh yeah, that one.
Hmm.
I can't remember if it was that one or another one where I remember we did a session right before lunch and I was really hungry and they recorded my stomach and then they used it for like these creature noises in the background or something.
Oh.
It was crazy. It was very embarrassing.
And this is kind of a bigger one, but I love the whole dub of Haruhi. I think that everyone in it is great, and that
That was
Tsuruya is just so meant to be done by you.
thank you. My biggest memory of that one was the very, very long laugh that she
Oh
did
yeah.
in the show. And I think we got that in two takes. I think
Oh
we did
wow.
two takes of it and it was just so ridiculous that we were all kind of like laughing in the studio because she just sounds completely crazy as she keeps laughing and laughing. It was fun.
Are there in terms of other voice actors that primarily do anime? Are there people that you're like closest friends with more than others?
Man, as far as people that just more do anime, I mean, so many of my friends now have just branched out to lots of things. But Steve Bloom and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn are very dear friends of mine. And it was funny with Steve for the longest time. We never met each other. Like it was a number of years where we were working on all these shows together, and it got to be this running joke at the studios because he'd be signed in and I'd be the next person, but he would finish early and I would get in like a few minutes late. And so we kept missing each other and just kind of eventually saying they don't exist. Steve Williams doesn't exist. Kari Wahlgren doesn't exist. And then we finally got to meet and now fast forward, he and Mary and I are such good friends. They're so, amazing people. Um, Stephanie Shea, she was involved with FLCL, so she was basically the first person to take a chance on me and hire me.
Oh,
And so I just over the years, now she's doing all sorts of things and directing and acting and um, but I have the softest spot in my heart for Stephanie and still text her and consider her a very good friend and just will always be really grateful to her for what she did for my career.
yep. The last person that did it was actually Kirk Thornton, so he wanted me to say hi.
Oh, Kirk. Just for anyone who ever wonders with Samurai Champloo if I'm Team Mugen or Team Jean, it's Jean all the way. And Kirk did such a dreamy job with that part. He was amazing.
I thought it was really interesting that actually both you and Kirk did ADR on Last House on the Left together.
Oh my gosh, we did.
Yeah.
That's okay. No one has ever asked me about that one before. So well done, Chris. Well done.
what was your like? What was the whole story with that?
You know, it's always funny when you do a loop group for something like that because you don't see the whole movie, you just see the scenes where you're, punching in and doing your voiceover stuff, and so Kirk and I have done lots of that over the years together, but, that's another one that was just really freaky
Yep.
because you're punching in and you're doing these scenes and you're like, "Oh, this is a little scary." So, and then when you go back and if you ever see it, like, all together, it's terrifying.
hmm Do you know Bridget Hoffman very well?
Man, I know the name, I don't know that we know each other well, though. Forgive me,
Okay.
Bridget, if I'm blanking out on that, but I totally know her name. Yes.
Well, because she mostly does a bunch of ADR now, but she was Inori, like your older sister in Lucky
Mm.
Star.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice. Yeah. Bridget and I don't know each other super well in person, but like I said, I absolutely know her name and know that she
right.
works a lot.
And so with Blood Plus, I did want to ask what if there was any kind of difficulty in playing the differences between Saya and Diva.
Wow, yeah, with Blood Plus, that was a big one because there were also some translation issues, so we had to kind of on the fly be, making little tweaks to the script just to make everything sync up, and, I did not know when I got hired for Saya that I would be playing her sister Diva as well.
Mhm.
So we got to that part of the of the show, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you're playing Diva as well." And I'm like, "Oh, oh, okay." And I thought for sure that, "Oh, she must just be, like, in a scene or 2." And then we kinda set the voice and everything, and then I didn't we started recording it, like, I thought, "Oh my gosh, she's a huge part of this story." So it was challenging. That I remember that just being a very challenging show, but very cool.
And I guess well in general, if there is a single one, like what's the darkest emotional headspace you've had to get into for an anime role?
That would be Helsing
Okay.
playing Rip Van Winkle. Absolutely 100%. Yeah, there were so many things about that character that were so dark. Um, you know, gosh, just so dark. And then the big, long, extracted death scene.
Yeah.
I remember Taliesin Jaffe directed that, and we finished that scene, and we had to take a break, and we just kinda both went out in the sunshine for a minute and just went, "Whoa, that was intense."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that one is probably the darkest headspace I've ever been in for a
Okay.
character.
And played since you've gotten to be the main voice of Saber in every incantation of the Fate series, I was wondering too what the most difficult scene it was to record for
Oh,
her throughout
man.
everything.
I've got my Excalibur back there, by the way. I don't know if you guys
Oh, yeah.
see that in the background.
Yeah.
My full-size Excalibur sword. Um, that oh, man, Saber is just I have loved playing Saber, and, you're never guaranteed that they're gonna bring you back for the same character each time something gets each time they do a sequel, because
Right.
sometimes it switches companies, sometimes it switches union status or directors or something like that, so you're not always guaranteed that you get to keep playing the character, and I've been really thrilled that I could play this character a number of times, and, I just think just the scene where she's talking about honor and feeling like she's failed as a leader and really struggling with this idea of you know, letting people down and people dying on her watch
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, uh, was really heart-wrenching
Yep.
because I think Saber is one of those characters that really wants to do the right thing and tries to do the right thing, and that is not always easy, and it's not always black and white, so there's definitely an element of Saber that's very tortured
Yep.
about that. So, yeah, that's what sticks out to me.
Or if there was well, in the most recent three movies, like in the I was also wondering what it was like in the final one where she gets has to get killed by uh Emiya, like at the very end when they're fighting against each other.
Oh, it's just it's so dramatic, you guys. It's just yeah, rip my heart out. It's just so much drama. That's what I would say.
Do you think who do you think that you relate the most with in terms of anime characters?
Oh man. Kagami in Lucky Star does remind me a lot from when I was in junior high.
Mhm.
Like that slightly uptight, bookish girl who loves her friends, but she wants to play by the rules and gets really stressed out when things don't go by the rules. And she has a little romantic streak and she gets crushes, but then she's really embarrassed about that. So yeah, there's a little bit of her that reminds me of my younger self. And I guess I don't know, I have such a sentimental attachment for Haruko, not just because she was the first role, but I think because she has so many different sides to her personality.
Yeah,
You know, sometimes she's sexy, sometimes she's very tender and vulnerable and sincere. Sometimes she's crazy, sometimes she's, you know, a total badass. And I just I don't think we see a lot of characters like that in
right.
anime. So I just I can empathize with that character showing all these different parts of herself because I think we all have that.
Mhm. And this is something I like to generally ask voice actresses because I've noticed that the process for everybody is different. What is your, do you have a particular process in terms of boy voices like that you do for you specifically?
Specifically for boy voices,
Yeah.
um, yeah, you just kind of all just kind of like if you do any sort of like, you know, James Brown or Watch Me Now, you know, anything that just kind of throw it in there just a little bit, and that can be at least a starting place for me. Um, and shoes, I find that when I at least for a long time, whenever I would play a boy character, I wouldn't wear heels. I would wear tennis
Oh,
shoes or something
yeah.
like that because there's something about the way I would stand
Yeah.
that would feel more boy to me.
Well, because, yeah, when I've talked to Wendy Lee and Karen Strassman and Mona Marshall, it's like I've noticed that they all have really kind of more unique processes for doing that.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great question. It's a really
yeah.
great question.
Are you, do you have like a age range for boys that you're, I don't know, like most comfortable with?
Um, it's hard to say. I maybe for me it would be 9 to 12. I mean, once they hit puberty and the voice starts to change, then I'm out of the game. But
Right.
yeah, but like right before they hit puberty is maybe my sweet spot.
I didn't know that, and I did notice in terms of anime that one of the main boys that you got to play was, I think it was like the main character in Rave Master, like the little,
Oh
like
my god.
the young version of him. It was Yuri Lowenthal playing like the adult, but
Again, not one I've ever been asked about. So, well done. Well done. I gosh, it's been so long since I've done that one. I can't even really give you any behind the scenes stories about it.
no,
I can't
okay,
say that I can say though with Yuri, Yuri and I both kind of started doing it around around the same time, so it's been really cool to
right.
see his career just blow up and to see him do so well and you know, to just over the years both be still having, you know, a great career out in LA. So that's neat.
Hmm. And in terms of video games, like, do you have a favorite character?
Man, I did like this is a really random one, but uh Fat Princess 2, Fat Princesses
Oh,
2.
yeah,
I played the Bitter Queen, and that was just fun. It was just a fun, overly dramatic character that was a blast to play. I just really had a great time with that one. Um, and as far as just a super challenging experience, Mortal Kombat 11, um, being able to play both Katana and then Melina, was a super cool and challenging experience because they're very different and, um, yeah, it's just such an iconic franchise and stuff, so that was another really cool one to do.
It does, just based off how it sounds, it does kind of sound like Melina's voice. It'd be hard to
Oh,
maintain.
yeah. It's one of the most stressful ones I've ever done, so we had to schedule shorter sessions
Yeah.
because after a couple hours, I'm like, "I'm sorry, guys, like, I'm the voice is gone."
Mhm.
So we did more sessions, but shorter ones to get all of her stuff.
What about, well, in terms of like anime games, what do you have like a favorite for that?
Oh, I mean, the Final Fantasy
Yeah.
franchise is amazing. I did Ash in Final Fantasy 12 and then Aranea in Final Fantasy 15, and those were both really great roles to
Mhm.
play. Yeah, those two were pretty special.
Is there much of a, because with me specifically, I was really into the dot hack games growing up. I know
Yeah.
you were Shino, if there's much of like a story with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. That one, I got to continue playing the character, um, and I don't really have any interesting stories about it, but it
Okay.
has surprised me that it pops up at conventions. Like
Yeah.
people will bring one of those games, and it's had a lot more staying power than like and sentimental attachment to it than I would have expected when we were working on it. So that makes me really happy. It always makes me happy when people bring it up at a con.
Right. Well, and I know with the Tales series that your role as Rain is like really big too.
That one, I cannot believe it. I every single convention, there's at least a couple Rain saga.
Yep.
And that one, I had a blast recording that one. Um, Danny at Cup of Tea was the engineer, and um, I remember Now and Taiki. Just we all got to work together for a long time to put that game together, and we just laughed a lot. And I just every time I think back on recording that game, it was just so much fun. Like it was just the most positive, happy experience with that crew. So yeah, I have a lot of just fond memories of working with those people.
Just some stuff I wanted to ask about original animation. Since you've been playing Jessica, obviously, for years and years now, did you immediately kind of relate to her, or did that kind of take time for that to happen?
Man, it's funny because I was thrilled to get to play her, just in the pilot, the first episode, and I just didn't really know how much she would be involved, or maybe it would just be one kind of, oh, she's the girl he's got a crush on, but maybe she doesn't pop up again. So it's been really cool to see her continue to be this ongoing part of the series. And, then I had one episode where I did a few lines as Rick's spaceship, and then they ended up writing that whole Keep Summer Safe
Yep.
episode. So the spaceship took on her own complete personality and kept getting written into episodes. And so it's been such a lovely surprise because I didn't know that I'd get to be this much a part of the show, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Mhm. I know more recently too that you got to be a bunch of different voices on Infinity Train.
Yeah, the Parka Dennison, I know that one pops right up in the forefront of my mind, and that was really cool. Like that was a fun one to be a part of.
I guess, well, what's like the most recent thing that you've worked on that you can talk about?
I can't talk about. There's so much I can't talk about. Yeah, I guess the safest thing I could probably say is that there's a preschool show for Nickelodeon called Bubble Guppies,
Okay.
and I love working on this show. And it's they use real kids for the little group of mermaid kids that are the main characters, and then anytime there are villagers or townspeople or little crabs or a dinosaur or something like that, I get called in to do these support characters. And it's another one of those shows that I never expected it to keep going this long. And I love the people that I get to work with on this show. And we're recording more of that right now. So that one I can safely say is coming out.
Okay. And in terms of original animation, what's the like most starstruck you've been in terms of working with somebody else?
Oh, one of them has to be Robert England
Yep.
because when I was a kid, I used to sneak over to my neighbor's house and we would play Nightmare on Elm Street with our Barbies. And she
Oh,
had HBO, but I didn't. So we would try to sneak a few minutes of watching Nightmare on Elm Street when her mom wasn't home.
yeah.
We'd only ever be able to catch like a few minutes, and then we had to turn it off. And so he was such a part of my forbidden secret childhood that my first series regular with Disney was Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go, and he came in to play one of the guest roles, and
Yep.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, my entire childhood, I'm losing my mind here." So, and he was lovely. He was a lot of fun and really sweet. So, yeah, that one, oddly enough, was kind of one of my bigger starstruck moments.
I was wondering what it was like uh, working on American Dad.
Very quick. It
Okay.
was like literally in and out. Um, it was one of those little bucket list things like, "Oh my gosh, finally I got to do a little something on American Dad," but it was so fast that I went in and I did my stuff, and I think I was maybe in and out in about 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. You got to be in WandaVision too for a voice thing.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun. I came in to do some of the loop group stuff in the background, and they told us that they were going to have these commercials and they were going to have a few people read for each one, and then they were going to have the clients pick whoever they wanted. And it's always been my dream to be the voice on one of those medical commercials.
Oh, very.
So I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is my chance." And it was perfect. It was just like, "Yes, I'm going to count this. Maybe it doesn't technically count, but I'm going to count this as chalking that off the bucket list to do a medical commercial."
Mhm. And I wasn't sure. I don't know if I saw anything, but have you been a part of any Studio Ghibli movies in some way yet?
Yes, I did when Marnie was there,
Oh,
and
but yeah.
I played the mom in that one, and then just like other little random voices through the movie. So that was really cool just to get to be part of that because they're so iconic.
Is there still something that's on your like bucket list in terms of voiceover that you're wishing to be a part of?
Man, I've never gotten a chance to do Robot Chicken, and so there's
Oh,
always
yeah.
kind of this little I'm just like, "Oh, come on, bucket list." And yeah. So that's the first one that kind of just like pops into my mind.
Okay. Well, I guess the last thing I could ask you is that the way that I like to end every interview I do is asking what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh gosh. That's a big question. What do I want my legacy to be? I guess maybe it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I I hope that, people are like, "Oh yeah, she did good work and she got to work on a lot of stuff." But I hope I'm maybe remembered as being a good person too, because, you know, at the end of the day, y- it doesn't matter how many jobs you've done if people are just like, "Ugh, they're a nightmare to work with," or
Yeah.
something like that. So, I guess I I guess I want my legacy to just be that, um, that people kind of enjoyed working with me professionally and personally. So, fingers crossed, guys. I'm seeing if I can do it.
I did have a story that I like something that and like a role of yours that helped me with because I told this to Wendy Lee and Steve Staley and Kirk because they were a part of the same things too. When I was in fourth grade, that's when I discovered like the dot hack games. And just one night I was out to eat normally with my parents and everything was fine and we were about to leave and then we get told like, oh, nobody can leave. You guys have to wait. And then all of a sudden heavily armed SWAT people came into the restaurant and everybody in there had to turn all the lights off and we were in both of the bathrooms all huddled together for
What?
like 5 hours because there was a guy who murdered two people and he crashed his car outside the restaurant and he was fleeing on foot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So and then we all had to get escorted to our cars after that, like at 1 a.m.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah. And I was playing the dot hack games at that time and as like a 8 or 9 year old, I know I wouldn't have been able to get over something like that any other way. So
Oh man. Well, thank you. I mean, if in some small way that kind of helped you through that experience, holy cow, I'm so glad.
yeah.
See, and that's the kind of thing like we just do our stuff in a dark room and you don't ever know how it affects people or what it
Right.
helps them get through. So, it's just always really special to hear something like that. So, thanks. Oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
sending you a virtual hug.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Oh my gosh, me too. Thanks so much for having me on. And yeah, I just really appreciate it. And thank you for such an in-depth interview. Like you really asked me about things that nobody else has. So thank you for
Yeah, no
that.
problem.
All right. Well, take care. I will see
Yeah.
you soon.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye. Take care, Chris.